Hey guys, John Arcali here representing How to Get Into Drama School. So today we're here with one of our students, Luke Capello, who just got accepted to drama school. Congratulations. Yeah, exactly. So why don't you tell us what school you're going to in the fall?
Yeah, so next year I will be attending Boston University as a BFA Acting major in the School of Theater. So really excited about that.
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations. And you got accepted to some other schools as well, right?
I did. The other ones I got accepted to was the acting program at California Institute of the Arts, the acting program at Emerson College, and then the theater program at Marymount Manhattan College. I believe those were the four. And then I got waitlisted at University of Michigan, but those were the only ones, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious, like off of that, was it a difficult decision for you? Like, were you like, oh no, I definitely know I want to go to BU, or did you have some weighing options? What was the decision process like for you?
Yeah, once I got rejected from a couple schools, like kind of the big reach schools, like Juilliard, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, BU was kind of my top. And so I kind of knew because I had done enough research where because I had found out about those other three schools or four schools before I found out about BU. But I knew that like if I got into BU, that's probably where I'd want to go. I was really set on it, so it all worked out because I was like, if I don't get in, I'm gonna have to do a lot more research. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
BU
that's
is my top out of all of those. Yeah.
oh, cool, cool, cool. So yeah, so let's kind of like let's backtrack. So from the beginning, like when did you start preparing? How early?
Yeah. So one thing I would say about that was I think it would have been smarter to have started earlier than I ended up doing because I really started to prepare in September of fall 2020.
Mhm.
And I had read a couple plays over the summer, but I think if I had started either just like at the beginning of the summer or even March when COVID first hit, like I could have been reading a play every week or two. And I think that would have helped in finding material that I really loved and like I was really connected to. Because since I started a little later than I would have wanted, I didn't have many options where I kind of had to, if I liked it, I had to just kind of go for it with my.
Yeah.
But I got very lucky too with the ones I did.
Yeah. So how did you find your monologues? Was it just reading plays, or did you have people giving you suggestions, or in school stuff that you worked on before?
Yeah, so I feel like it started off because I had started in September. It was first a teacher or a coach recommended me the monologue, and then I read the play to see if it was something I liked, and then I chose it. So the monologue, should I say? I should probably say the monologues I ended up.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So my first classical was the opening monologue to Shakespeare's Richard III. The Now is the Winter of Our Discontent. And my first contemporary was This Is Our Youth by Kenneth Lonergan. I played the role of Dennis. And then my third monologue, which I only ended up because I ended up preparing four because for Juilliard I needed the four, even though I never used all four in one audition. It was either like classical and a contemporary. Here and there, I might have used two contemporary, but never all four. But so yeah, my third or not my third classical, but my third piece was The Prince of Aragon from The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. And then my fourth piece, my second contemporary was Edwin from Our Lady of 121st Street by Stephen Adly Gurgis. Um, and yeah, so those monologues, the first one that I found and got recommended to me was the Richard one. I was taking a college audition preparation class at a local theater near me at the Hanover Theater in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I had been a part of productions there and classes in years prior. And so that was the first time they had offered that class. And this was before I had started with you and Anthony and Brandon. And what that acting teacher, she told us for the Shakespeare, she was like, your Shakespeare, like your contemporary, you'll have something, really close to you and your truth. And, it's good for the Shakespeare to show some contrast and maybe also, go a little bit outside your comfort zone and show you in a new light. And so, and it's funny, she had never worked with me before, but she recommended Richard III. And for those of you who know the play, Richard, he's basically the villain of the show, even though he's the main character. And I never played a villain before, but I always wanted to. And I also thought Richard was a really cool character because, yeah, he's the villain, but I mean, it's arguable whether or not, like, because he starts off, I mean, a lot had happened to him that was very bad, and it's whether or not he's the villain or if it was society. But it was just a really cool role and kind of an anti-hero role, and I loved that monologue when I read it and then read the play, and that was probably my favorite one I ended up doing for my audition processes.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So do you think like being able to find this material, the material that you're really connected to, sustained you throughout all of your preparation? Talk about things that kind of like helped you keep going. Did you ever have like ups and downs where you're like, oh my God, I can't do this monologue again, like rehearsing it another time? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that was the thing with the Richard monologue, where it never really got old, because I loved the circumstances of it, and the whole he's looking at his brother who's basically become the man that he wants to be, but he can't because of his physical deformities. And so that never got old. I could always, go into that and just enjoy it every single time. But for my This Is Our Youth monologue, which I had read that play, that was recommended to me by the same teacher. She had gave me a list of plays with really good monologues for teenage boys or young adults.
Yeah.
And she recommended This Is Our Youth. And I love that play. It's, I mean, one of my favorite contemporary plays still. And I love the monologue. It's basically where Dennis is talking to his friend Warren, it's where he's basically shocked and he's ranting because someone they knew who was a drug dealer like Dennis died and overdosed on the same drugs that Dennis had done with that person the night before. And so I thought that was really interesting, and I loved doing that monologue, because then he starts freaking out and like, well, I could do this and I could do this. But that monologue actually, after a while, started to run dry. And just, I think it was because I got a little self-conscious about, I don't think I can portray this truthfully, because I've never been in that sort of situation with, like someone dying or with drugs or anything like that. And so I felt a little bit out of my comfort zone, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I think if I had been more confident in myself with that monologue, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But I started to get a little self-conscious and then not enjoy it that much. And I think if I'd started earlier with, reading plays and stuff, that could have helped to find monologues like the Richard one that I really loved doing all throughout.
Do you think the closer that it got to the audition, you started to second guess yourself? Like, was that where the nerves started to come in, or?
Yeah, after a couple times I had done the monologue, I think that's when I started to realize, because like when the Richard monologue, I guess it was, I got into it and I would like feel emotions, and it felt a lot different. Whereas the This Is Our Youth, sometimes I could notice myself slipping out of it and kind of thinking, okay, this is what I got to do next, or I hope I don't look weird, which is horrible. And like, but it did happen. And I think once the audition process came, I started to second guess myself with that one. And I ended up liking my second contemporary more, I think. It's funny though, that This Is Our Youth monologue, because I had said that to Brandon, who was, for those of you who don't know, another one of the acting coaches who I ended up doing the most sessions with. And when I told him that, like, I was kind of not feeling it with the This Is Our Youth, he was like, oh, really? I really like that one for you. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
okay, maybe it works really well. So that could have shown it was just all in my head, and I really should have just, gotten out of my own head. And that's something, I definitely dealt with a lot, was getting out of my own head in my own way
Yeah.
and doing it. Yeah.
Did you ever switch it up in the auditions? Like, oh, I'm going to start with Edwin instead of as your contemporary. How did that go if you did?
Yeah. So for my University of North Carolina School of the Arts audition, I was going to do Richard, and then it was either This Is Our Youth or Edwin from Our Lady of 121st Street. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Because I remember like a year ago, I'd watched Anthony's video talking about, for his Juilliard audition, he did two pieces that he had never done at the same audition. So I was like, well, I've never done these two together. So you know what? I'm going to do Richard and I'm going to do Edwin. And that's where I changed it up. And I really enjoyed doing that. Just because it was new, I hadn't done that. It was always Richard, then This Is Our Youth, Richard, then This Is Our Youth.
Yeah.
And those auditions were actually very interesting, because during my UNCSA audition and my second callback for Carnegie Mellon, my entire family got COVID, including me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so it was like days before that audition, and I was like, well, I think it's too late to like change or cancel. So I guess I just got to roll with it. So for those auditions, I had like body aches and was like hot, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna make any excuses, and I'm just gonna.
Wow.
And I thought I was like trying to look for the positive. I was like, maybe it'll make my performance better in some way.
Well, I mean, sometimes that stuff gets you out of your head, you know? So like you're just too tired to like be nervous. So you're like, let's just do it and get it done. Wow, how crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, you talked a little bit about this other place that you had studied before working with how to get into drama school. What was your previous training before doing all the application process?
Yeah, so currently I'm at just a public high school in Massachusetts. You know, I didn't go to performing arts high school, but summer of sophomore year, I auditioned for the youth summer program at the Hanover Theater in Worcester, which is this professional theater that Broadway tours come through. But they also have a conservatory for, you know, high school students and also middle school students. And their youth summer program is a 3-week intensive program over the summer. And it basically culminates in a big musical at the end that you do on the actual stage. And so that was my first kind of taste of doing stuff outside of high school. And when I kind of realized that acting is something I wanted to pursue as a career. And so I had done that for around 2 years, but that was really it. I mean, high school and classes at the high school, they offer theater classes, but then also classes and then the youth summer program at the Hanover Theater. And also this year I was a part of their youth acting company where we did 3 shows a season.
Oh,
Or
wow.
yeah.
So how did you do that? Was it via Zoom?
Yeah, so it was different each time. So right now we've done 2 out of 3. In the fall, we did an Agatha Christie radio play, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was like we had an audio engineer come in and basically we recorded it all at, oh no, we didn't record it all at home. And that's what we thought it was going to end up being, but we eventually on like one of the last days of the show, we basically got on the stage. Everybody had a disposable mask on, the surgical one, and everybody had a microphone and then a stand for their script. And we basically recorded the play there. And then we had also recorded different sound effects we wanted, and then also took stuff from the internet, different, you know, generic sound effects.
Oh,
And the audio editor and engineer basically took it all together and created this radio play. And it was so cool just to do that. And then the winter production, we did Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. And
wow.
that was supposed to be a live show on stage, or not live, but we were going to do it on the stage and then it would be streamed to be watched at home. But because of the guidelines, because that's when the COVID cases started to increase. So we
Yeah.
had to do it on Zoom. So we just made the most of it. I mean, obviously not the ideal thing. It was more of a reading, less of like a full, you know, a full out production.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then right now we actually got the go. We're going to be doing Urinetown the musical on stage for an actual live audience in June. So that's really cool that we're
Oh,
going to be.
wow. Oh, that's exciting.
It's been like a year and a half um,
Yeah.
on stage live. So yeah, that's
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about that, about Zoom, like all the Zoom auditions and the Zoom callbacks. Like, what was the experience there? Did you do any like pre-screens or self-tapes that you had to submit and then have live callbacks, or were they all live Zoom sessions from the beginning? How was that?
so none of it. I never did anything live, like in person. And honestly, depends on the person. But for me personally, I feel like I got it easy because of that, because I felt really comfortable at home. You know, I can only imagine what it'd be like to, you know, have to audition and do those monologues actually in front of those people. But that was something we didn't do. And that would have been a great experience. But I think it kind of helped a little bit ease some of that tension, being able to do it literally right here.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I had done pre-screen videos that I sent in, and then I ended up doing live Zoom auditions for all the schools.
Okay. Okay, cool. Did BU have a pre-screen that you had to self-tape and send in?
Yeah, and theirs actually was a lot different than the other ones, because for the other schools that did the pre-screens, it was like just, you know, classical and then contemporary and like just completely traditional, you know, look off to the side of the camera. But for BU, it was interesting because it wasn't any classical, it was too contemporary.
Oh,
And Yeah, and for one of the monologues, my This Is Our Youth, I did was traditional, just a normal pre-screen audition. But for the second one, they wanted an activity one where basically you're doing your contemporary monologue while also doing some sort of activity that enhances the stakes or the circumstances of the piece. And you have to get creative with it. Like they didn't want you to just like say in the script, like the person is like doing their makeup. They didn't want you to do what they're doing in the show. They want you to be creative and
Oh,
find a way.
wow. Oh,
Um,
that's really interesting. Do you
yeah,
mind sharing what you did? Was it for Edwin that you had to did the activity? Yeah.
yeah. And so what I did for that, because it was the Edwin monologue, and basically in that monologue, it's where Edwin's talking to his brother who has a mental disability, who's basically been out of the house. He comes home at 3 a.m. and he's been out since 10 a.m. the earlier morning. And basically Edwin had to give up his career and his goals in life to take care of his brother because both their parents died. And this is kind of one of those moments where he just lets out on him, but he also still loves him. But it's a very intimate moment where he's really concerned and trying to get his brother to understand, like, that he could have like died being alone by himself for so long. And so what I ended up doing for my activity was so I live in New England, so my family has a wood burning stove. And so one of the things, and we just got it this year, and one of the things my dad mainly has done, but then I've done a little bit of, was basically chopping wood and making kindling with this kind of, it's like this metal, like this cast iron like tool, and you basically put the like piece of wood on top of it, and then you have like a mallet, a mallet, and you basically hammer it down and it splits it into smaller pieces that you can use for kindling
Oh,
for the.
wow.
And so what I did was I did it as if Edwin's brother Pinky is coming home. And like instead of like city, like in New York City, it's like a suburban garage. And basically he comes home and he's letting out his anger by just hammering away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really smart choice for sure because you get to like really let that out, right?
And it was kind of serendipitous because when I was doing the run of the monologue I ended up sending, when he starts to get really angry, because how I did it in the monologue, where he revs up and up and up, but then he finds himself again. He doesn't push yet, but then in the second time he does let it out. And when that part comes, when he's getting really angry and he says, he calls Pinky the R word and really just says horrible things to him, I was hammering this big piece of wood that wouldn't go down. It would not cut. So I'm just
Oh, wow.
really going into it, getting even more angry because this wood won't go down.
Oh, wow.
It worked so perfectly. And then I just ended up throwing the mallet to the ground at the end of the monologue.
Wow.
So yeah, it worked. I was really nervous about that because I was like, what do I do? But I thought I did the best thing I could for that monologue. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It was definitely a real obstacle, right? You couldn't get it to cut.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, so we've talked about the experience. Was there anything that was unique about well, obviously unique about the BU audition? Yeah, this activity, right, compared to some of the other ones. Like how was Cal Arts? Was it more traditional or?
So for Cal Arts, the pre-screen was, yeah, more traditional. It was like kind of the same as Carnegie Mellon and University of Michigan, where it was, classical piece, just pre-screen, and then contemporary. And then also you could send some supplemental videos. And I'm also a singer, so I sent in some songs. Even though I'm going the acting route, I wanted to show that, I can also do this. Um, but I feel like each like live audition, whether some schools didn't do a pre-screen and it was just a live Zoom audition, but some did, Zoom callbacks. And I feel like each experience was different on that Zoom audition. Are there any in particular you want me to talk about? Because I mean, I could talk about all of them, but I don't know if
No,
we have.
I was just curious, like, so, well, actually, I'm curious about the singing. So if you're doing you're going through and the acting track with BU, right? Do you still get to do any kind of singing as well? Or is musical theater separate from that? How does the program sort of, how is it constructed?
Totally. Yeah, that's one of the big factors why I really wanted to go to BU was there is no musical theater program. There's a concentration as an acting major or a theater arts major. Basically, the difference is if you're a theater arts major, you have more flexibility to take like a directing class or a playwriting class. Where if you're in the acting program, it's more, conservatory, you're studying acting 24/7 kind of deal.
Okay.
both majors are allowed to audition for this musical theater concentration. So it's not a separate track or a separate major. And that was something I really loved because I really wanted the majority of my education to be acting, but also have opportunities to, further my singing ability and dance ability.
Yeah. So are both of those the theater and the theater arts and
Yeah.
then the acting track, are they both BFAs, or is just the acting track a BFA?
They're both BFAs. Basically, at Boston University, your first year is just called the Theater and Performance course. So all like the people who want to be theater arts BFAs and acting BFAs, they all start out first year as just performance course students taking the same classes. And then at the end, towards the end of their freshman year, they choose their major, whether or not that's the theater arts or the acting route. Yeah.
Cool. So what was the moment like when you got accepted? How did you find out?
Yeah. Oh, it was so awesome. But yeah, so basically, I found out about the other schools, basically all of them.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was just waiting on BU, and that was the one that I was like, I'm most likely going to go there if I got in. And so that entire week, I was just, I knew I was going to find out March 27th. It was a Saturday.
Oh,
And
wow.
and the week before, we had actually gone into Boston for my parents' anniversary. And so we got to walk around the campus.
Oh, cool.
And so that was just like, I was like, oh, come on, I really hope I get in because I really like the place and everything
Yeah.
about it. And yeah, so it was like 7:53 a.m. I knew I was finding out that day. I had woken up a bit early for a weekend, and because I knew I was going to find out sometime that day. And I was actually, because I didn't want to stress too much. So I was like, all right, you know what I'll do? I'll just lie in bed and watch an episode of Game of Thrones or something just to relax and just chill before I find out. And right when I sat down in the bed to do that, I saw the notification saying there's been a status on your application. I was like, oh crap, because I was like, it was so 50-50 because I really got rejected from kind of half the schools and then got accepted into half. It was more like 6 rejected and 4 accepted, I guess. But so I was like, it really could go either way. And I was confident in my callback. I thought it went really well. But I had that callback January 30th, sorry. And so it had been a while. So I was like, okay, I guess we'll see what happens. And so
Yeah.
I wanted my parents not to be in the room with me when I found out. So they were waiting outside. And so I opened it up. And before I could even view the admission, like the letter, I saw in the corner, it said, congratulations. And I knew, I was like, okay, I got in. And I opened it. And yeah, and my dad had told me, he was like, if you get in, I'll take you in that day again and we'll go buy a sweatshirt. And so that's
Oh, wow.
because
Oh,
we're only 30 minutes outside Boston.
oh, cool. So you won't be far from your folks either, which is
No,
really
yeah. And that's funny because that was never really a factor, like either being close to home or being in one particular place. It was really about the program and the training I was going to get. And I think I kind of wanted to go a little bit far away, but I get, I'm going to love it in Boston. And it's just funny because that's not what I originally thought way back in September I'd be. But it's where I want to go. And
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So how many students are in the program? Do you know?
I think so. So as I said, it's kind of combined that first year with the theater arts and the acting.
Yeah.
Here it was a little, as I'm sure all the schools were, it was more competitive than any other year. They saw like a boost in admission, in applicants. And so it was like only a 7 to 8% acceptance rate for the program.
Wow.
And so that's about basically, I think, they accept, I think, then 70 to 80 students for both programs, but then probably only half of those end up going, maybe. I don't know the statistics on how many end up going. But then it's basically split off after that freshman year. So it's probably like around 20 kids in each program after freshman year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's a great size.
Exactly. Not too big. And then also, not incredibly small where you can have an ensemble and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any like advice or an exercise or type of preparation that really helped you throughout the process? Anything that you want to share with viewers? Anything that we haven't, covered yet?
Yeah, that's really cool. I think the whole thing about a technique that helped, I'll get into that after I say like my little bit of advice first. I feel like the advice I'd give was maybe start earlier than I did. I think, I hadn't grown as much as I have now since then. I've done a lot of growth since September. And I think it would have been more, I would have been able, because since I started a little bit later, I don't know. I mean, does that sound late to you, September? I mean, to me, it
I
kind
mean,
of,
typically students start somewhere around August, September.
yeah.
So it doesn't seem too late, but this year, this upcoming year, we've had people already starting and having interest. So it really kind of depends on the person, right?
Okay.
The individual and the individual actor, I think.
Yeah. I think the more time you give yourself to prepare, like, the less time you need to spend per day, like, especially in the beginning. Like, if you start, say, beginning of the summer, then, I mean, you only just need to, like, start off by, reading a play, however long it takes you, and then, so I think because I started a little bit later, I had to do more per day, because of that. So I think you'll be able to have a better balance if you start a bit earlier. That would be one of my advice. Another piece of advice I'd have was thoroughly research the schools you want to go to. Because that was also something when I first started out, I really kind of only went by the name and reputation and what I knew. And I did some research, but I think if I had really researched each program, and saw what interested me and, what I really liked, then I would have been able to been smarter about choosing the different schools. And that's what happened once I started researching more. I really found that Boston University, had everything that I wanted in a program. And so definitely, just, putting in, that work, not only work on your monologues and your audition, but also the work of finding the schools you want to go to. And also, yeah, starting earlier. I'd also say definitely private coaching. I found that there was only so much I could do by myself. And that's when I really realized I needed some acting coaches and some people who knew a lot more than me and could help me improve my monologues. And that's what John and Brandon and Anthony totally did. And I really think, yeah, that made my work 100% better. And so that too. But the technique that really helped, at least just calm me and get ready to kind of do the work, was we did a little bit of the Alexander technique.
Yeah.
And I really like that. So I'd say that's something to research. The Alexander technique, it's a lot of, just getting comfortable in your body and kind of being aware of, your whole body, and then being in a place, a relaxed and grounded place where you can, do your work efficiently. So I think if that sounds like something that interests any of the viewers, look into it. And that's at BU. Each year you're taking an Alexander technique class.
Oh,
And so that was
fantastic.
also something that I, am going to really enjoy, because I like the introductory work we did with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, and private sessions, Alexander sessions are amazing as well. So yeah, I'm excited for you to get to experience all of that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so this was really amazing. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to share before we sort of wrap up?
Yeah. I just say, if acting is something you're definitely, whether it's, you go in the acting route or the musical theater route or whatever it is, go for it. I'd say don't hold back, be smart about it, research the schools, but don't think one school is too hard to get into to not audition, because, like, the worst that's going to happen is you don't get in. But if you don't audition for that school, then you're definitely not going to get in. So I think, if, as long as, just, go for it, go for the big school you want to go to. Don't just go for the big school. I'd say, instead of having one dream school, have 10 dream schools. So that way it doesn't matter where you end up, you really want to go to that place no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how many schools you auditioned for? Was 10?
10. And that it didn't start like that. It started out as 5. And then as I, did more research and auditioned for schools, it ended up being 10. Yeah.
That's amazing. So can you talk before we pause, talk a little bit more about the research, like getting on the website and figuring out specifically what the program offers, like Alexander Technique classes, and like if it's a Meisner-based program, or if they do Grotowski and it's more experimental work. Like I know CalArts has a sort of reputation for being more experimental. Talk about that a little bit. That helped you determine the schools that you wanted to apply to.
Yeah. So, at first, I think the base was definitely just looking at the website and, like, seeing how they described their course, and then also the curriculum. But then also, I think it's also reaching out to whether it's, people you trust, like acting coaches or teachers, or other students who have auditioned for those schools in the past, or just searching the internet for people's opinions, because I think some schools don't tell you everything, like, or at least, and not necessarily it's a bad thing, but like for CalArts on their website, there wasn't a lot of like the experimental work that they described in like the base of their courses. And so that's something that I found out later on, was that something they're, more well known for. And that's not necessarily what I was looking for. So I think, primary resource, look at the school and their website and the curriculum, but then definitely reach out to people who might know more about that program, because you'll get their opinion about it. And, the more information you have, the better.
Yeah. I mean, talking to alumni from the school as well can be really helpful, because you can kind of get insider information about the program and
Totally. Yeah.
all of that. Yeah, and we also offer a podcast resource where we have alumni speaking about. I did one about Yale, actually.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually looked at those for Carnegie Mellon, Boston University, and CalArts.
Okay.
And yeah, that was a great resource too, because it's that same thing, just getting, people's opinions about the school and their experience. And I remember from listening to that podcast, I really liked what the person had to say about Boston University as well. And that also like started to really put my interest there. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Luke. We really appreciate this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so great to chat with you, and I'm so excited for you. So
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm excited for everybody else, just enjoy it. It's a crazy ride. It really is, because it's long, but all of the hard work you'll put into it will totally pay off in the end. So just enjoy every second of it. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was awesome to just talk about my experience. Yeah.
yeah.